Hey, good evening, everybody, and happy Sunday night to you from Unlock the Middle Land. Hey, this is Dean Packard, Principal of Charlton Middle School, and I'm here tonight with some great guests. And, Sunday nights are always special because we have an opportunity to connect with people from across the country to talk about things that we do in our business that just make us better together. Again, my name is Dean Packard, Principal of Charlton Middle School in Charlton, Massachusetts. Great panel tonight. Before we go there, Chris, I was watching the Patriots. They were heading in the wrong direction. Never fun for New England fans, but it's the way it goes. You got the emblem on your chest right there. So how are you, brother? Good to see you.
Hey, Dean. Chris Starcheski, Principal of Dudley Middle School here, and co-creator of Unlock the Middle with Dean. You know what? We're talking instructional coaching tonight, and I think the Patriots could take a lesson from this conversation this evening, although the greatest of all time, Bill Belichick, is at the helm. I'm not too concerned as we head into the playoffs. But, instructional coaching and athletics coaching is really an important idea. You've got experts who are at the top of their game who still have folks who are sitting there talking about how they can be better and apply a game plan together to help students, help teams achieve higher levels. And that's really what instructional coaching is about, giving the right resources, the right attitude, the right belief system to inflate abilities and allow folks to achieve success. So I'm really fired up about tonight, Dean. We've got some great guests alongside you, myself, Josh Tovar. How are you this evening, our friend?
Doing great. Happy New Year to everybody. Welcome to Unlock the Middle, our Sunday PD, part of the Fantastic Five. Ready to learn from each other because you know what? All the stuff that's out there has not left over the Christmas vacation. It's still here, and only working together, we can get stronger together. Yet, please let us know where you're coming from, and please give us your 2 cents. What are you doing that makes us better leaders with the induction of curriculum at our campuses?
Think about it for a second. We've been off now for a couple of weeks, and I'll tell you, I've kind of missed our Sunday nights, even though we've been playing a bunch of episodes. But in 2022, it's time to ratchet it up. We're going to have a lot of fun here. We're going to keep looking for those personalities that light up the room for us and bring real energy to the round table. And it's not going to be disappointed tonight either. So again, we've got Jean, we've got Ashley, we've got April, and let's just start off. Jean, toss it over to you first. Tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, what you do, and just some of the things that the reasons why you've come here tonight.
So my name is Jean Heston. I serve in the instruction department in a school system in Middle Tennessee. So we have just dug our way out of the snow, and now we're swimming upriver with tons and tons and tons of rain. Expected to be 39 here tomorrow. So we're all bracing for impact. I've been an educator in education for 17 years, taught for 15 years in elementary, taught third grade for all of those years. And then I moved to central office during the pandemic. The need for my position was highlighted out of or through the pandemic, and I've been there for almost 2 years. Instructional coaching, I've really been able to see since coming to central office how instructional coaching moves the needle, how it makes teachers better, how it empowers teachers. It's something I'm passionate about, and I'm really lucky to work with awesome teams that are equally passionate in instructional or about instructional coaching. So I'm glad to be here tonight. Thank you.
You got it. Let's kick it down. Let's go down to April. April, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dean, thanks for having me tonight. I'm really excited to be here with you guys and to join some great minds, leaders, and coaches who are in it for the right reasons, in it for the kiddos, and that's just what fuels our fire and what we love to do. A little bit about me. I've been in education about the same time as Jean, actually. I didn't learn that until just now, about 17 years. Started out as an elementary teacher as well. Third grade was my niche. Loved it. Decided when I started experiencing what instructional coaching looked like and learning a little bit more about it, that kind of got bit by the bug. And something that I love to do as a leader is really help people meet their goals and let them develop themselves and see how I can be a support alongside of them in that work. And so as I experienced that for myself, I thought, let me check this thing out. Let me see what coaching is all about. And so applied and became what we call a lead educator in our district, and same district as Jean, Sumner County in Middle Tennessee. And did that for several years until I decided, same time as her during the pandemic, why not change jobs and move into central office, and went up to become an instructional coordinator. And so now I have the privilege and honor of working alongside of Jean and some fabulous coaches in our department, but also getting to work day to day with principals and our lead educators, our instructional coaches in the building to really make that difference in the lives of kids.
Good stuff. Excellent. Well, welcome. We're glad to have you here. And Ashley, you've been a staple. You've been here quite a few times, but just give a quick introduction of yourself once again, please.
My name is Ashley Hubner. I'm with Coach Access Coaching and Consulting. I'm an educational consultant and instructional coach that left Texas during the pandemic, moved to Florida, and started this niche. I was also elementary education at the beginning, and I like that we all have in common that third grade was my favorite too. I taught second and third grade, and then moved into a math interventionist position and then instructional coach. And I've taught or coached in title schools and then more higher income schools as well. And now I'm coaching virtually. So
good stuff. I'll tell you, Chris and Josh, we got some great minds here tonight about instructional coaching. So let's dig into this. Chris, why don't I kick it over to you?
Yeah, absolutely. As I'm listening to your bios and I'm hearing elementary school, bless your hearts for being with the young ones, and I'm trapped in the middle, as is Dean. And, everybody says, bless your hearts for dealing with middle level. But education has a real serious impact. We talk about elementary to middle to secondary, and we talk about that continuum. We talk about great instructional practices, how they are applicable at a variety of levels. Let's just kick it around a little bit and hear about your ideas about why instructional coaches are important and beyond justifying your jobs, and what the real purpose behind that instructional coaching responsibility is. We can kick it up to Jean and have her kick it around and go from there.
So I think the main purpose with instructional coaching is just growth, empowering teachers to be their own problem solvers and to reflect on their own instructional practices. We are all over the place, right? We have teachers who are killing it and teachers who need a little bit more support. And those instructional coaches are there just like they would be for running backs or for a point guard to help with their own skill sets and to push them to be a stronger player and a stronger teacher, just the same. That's been something we've really worked on in our district, is that mindset. As far as what is coaching? Well, I don't even play volleyball. Why are you trying to coach me? Well, defining what coaching means and how it can really benefit all teachers has been something that we've really rallied around these last 2 years.
Well, I can say this before we kick it over to April or Ashley. You're very lucky in your district to have this in a position to be able to support both teachers and student learning, because not every district is lucky enough to have instructional coaches embedded within their budgetary framework. So what a blessing that is. Utilized correctly, I think you can do some really, really, really great things. So going back to purpose and need, why don't we kick it down to April and see if you can build a little bit upon what Jean just said.
Dean, I'm going to kind of play off of that word embedded that you used. I think that's the best purpose for instructional coaching, is that true job embedded personalized learning. Who wouldn't want someone that does what they do, understands what they do, and can help support them in growing in what they do? And that's exactly what coaches do. It's kind of like that old verbiage that says we don't know what we don't know. So we need someone, our teammate, there alongside of us to help us see an outside perspective and really understand our blind spot. I'm terrible with these analogies, but I think it's something like a fish doesn't see the water around them. So like while we're in it, we really can't see it. So when we're in those lessons and we're doing what we do on a day-to-day basis, we don't see necessarily capture all the things that are happening around us. So to have that outside person that can be there alongside of us and help us capture that and know what to focus on. What are those best practices that we're focusing on so that we can get the biggest bang for our buck with our students? I think that the additional purpose and need serves with connecting teachers to one another. What kind of network we can set up with one another. How often do teachers get to actually leave their classroom and get to go see what their teammates are doing, even just right next door or across the hall? So leveraging those strengths of our teachers in our buildings and bridging that gap so that they're seeing what strengths one another has and being able to build upon those is powerful. And so I think those things to me testify to the greatest purpose and need of instructional coaches.
Good stuff. Ashley, kick over to you.
When you hear all that, like that they just spoke about, it's really hard to think about a principal doing all of those things, plus managing a school, managing parents, dealing with bus routes, all of those things. And that shows why this position is so important, because education is changing all the time. And thinking about how much it just changed in the pandemic that we went through right now with all of the new remote learning and new platforms and all of that. It is so necessary to have someone in a position that can be the one who is learning all the research and out there staying up to date with everything that's going on and bringing that back to a campus or a district and helping them continue to grow and be focused on instruction and not all of the other things that go along with the school community.
Yeah, I hear what you said, Ashley, and not a lot of districts are fortunate enough to have that, as Dean mentioned. But one of the most important pieces to really develop and cultivate, we heard a little bit embedded in Jean, April, and Ashley's response was the idea of that. Not everybody is a master of all things. We're a jack of all trades, not a master of many in some respects. But peer observations are so important and powerful. Knowing what's happening down the hallway is so powerful. And going in as a coach or an instructional leader, having that ability to build relationship and trust is exceptionally important. Whether you are coming in brand new or you're homegrown, and being able to cultivate that conversation. Let's talk a little bit about how you go about setting up the environment for a great instructional coaching experience, whether you're actually an instructional coach or an instructional leader who's looking to move your colleagues and your building forward.
Well, we start with April.
Yeah, thank you. One of the first things that I think we look for when we go to hire an instructional coach is what we call those soft skills, that interpersonal skill set. What is the person like? How do they relate to other people? How do they work with other people? How do they, what intrinsic qualities do they have that help them build those relationships with others? It's more than just being that effective communicator. They have to have that people first mindset and know how to connect with others to begin with. And so that's a key goal for us, to find those people, and that sort of supersedes any other attributes we look for when we hire our instructional coaches. And in saying that, what teachers are really seeking out is a partnership. They want a system of support. They don't want a teacher, and they want a partner and not a parent. So we have to be really conscientious of how we're interacting and understanding how adults learn and how we approach change with adults, because it looks so different than what we did in the classroom with teachers. And oftentimes that can be a struggle when we leave the classroom. We approach that from that authoritative standpoint of, teacher student, but working with adults is a whole different ballgame. And so having that level of understanding and respect for your peer and letting them sort of guide that work that you're doing together is critical. So how that coach interacts with the teacher is as important as what they do together and the work that they do together, because we are not brought in to be fixers. Coaches are there to be collaborators and teammates, and the teachers have to know that, and you have to establish that from the get-go. So that's essential.
But before you kick this over to Jean, what type of roadblocks do you see when you're trying to coach educators who are pretty confident with what they do, and they think and again, I'm a teacher at heart, and I get it. I knew what I knew really well. And for somebody to tell me I didn't know something, I was like, you better prove me wrong. Okay. But I get it. And helping people see things that they're not quite ready to see yet is hard. So as you answer this question about trust and relationships, talk about some of the challenges that you might come up against as well. So kick that over to Jean.
I think just like April said, with challenges would be that not creating buy-in, but that building those relationships. Some of those things just take time. You don't want to the first time you meet someone to be trying to start a coaching cycle, right? Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. Have you considered, or how did this go for you? There's going to be lots of deposits in that bank before you're able to cash in some of those things, right? I think, and you look for people to build that instructional coach role. You look for someone who sees people first, someone who is relational. It is so easy in any career to put your head down and see the tasks and see what's next. And building leaders have to do both of those things, right? Like, have to see the people, love your people, care for your people, but also make sure the buses are there and that your COVID policies are being followed, right? But in instructional coaching, it's important to see the people and meet them where they are. Miss Houston on here earlier, I just read her comment, how difficult it is, or, it's essential for principals to both, establish that trust and be an evaluator. I think that's a struggle we've had, is principals being an evaluator and then having that instructional coach be a coach. I'm not going to be here to evaluate you. I'm here to help you. I'm here to support you and in your growth. And that's been something that we struggled with as well. But it's been that lens has been interesting.
Great point. And I just want to take that and underline that for a second. Just because I'm a principal doesn't mean that I'm not a champion for you. It doesn't mean that I want to build your capacity and I want to make you think outside the box. I just did a 2-minute segment on building capacity and why it's important to do. Super important. And again, if we're seen as that, then all of a sudden that coaching that we have inside of us will help make everybody better. Good stuff. Ashley.
I think, like Gene said about really seeing the people is very important, because a lot of those teachers that you might have that roadblock with, it's kind of trying to figure out why. Why is their roadblock? Is it insecurity? Is it there's something they're judging about you, or they feel like you're judging about them? Is it they're just tired? There's always a reason why there might be an issue there. So when you really see them and get to know them and talk with them and have those conversations, and you can get to that why there might be an issue, then you can get to that conversation of getting over that and moving forward. April talked about having those soft skills. I think that is very important with coaching. You have to be able to see outside your box and get into their head. And it's just like you do as a teacher with your kids when you're trying to reach all your kids, and you're looking at all their different learning styles and all their different emotional how they're feeling at that time in the classroom. And you're looking at all that and trying to figure out, how am I going to educate you today? What am I going to do to reach you? You're doing the same thing with adults. You're looking at every aspect of their life and trying to figure out, what am I going to do to help move you forward in this moment? And what is my next step? Gene said, talking about moving the needle, it might just be one comment that you make to them. So what is it at that time that you need to do or say just to move that relationship forward?
And as we always say, or I like to say, is that we're not in the science business, we're not in the history business, we're not in the math business, we're in the people business. And once you've built that relationship with them, Gene, how do you go about making sure that you've bonded with them, and then you help them create those goals? You have them there, you have the pedagogy set down. How do you have them maintain or create attainable goals, especially through all this chaos that's going around us?
So I'm going to take this in two parts. First is building the relationships. I'm going to kick goal setting to April Lawson, because she does it better than she's fantastic. But as far as relationships, I look at like I do my own kids. And when I say kids, I mean the 21 that sat in front of me, 25, 22 that sat in front of me when I taught, not the 2 at home, right? Those love me no matter what. But the ones that I had in front of me, every day I made deposits. Every day I said, how's your kids? How was baseball last night? How's your brother? Those types of things. And just saw them as people first, just people, right? And then from there worked on setting those goals, or even just, hey, can I stop by and watch this lesson? I heard you're really great at student engagement. Or, hey, can I come by and watch this because I've heard you're really awesome at this? And find those bright spots and find those successes or things that they're good at. Everyone's good at something. Find those things and then capitalize on those for your deposits. But as far as goal setting to really improve their tier 1 instruction, Ms. Lawson's your go-to for that question.
Talk to us, April.
Thanks, Gene. And Josh, I think one of the things I just wanted to add to what Gene and Ashley were saying a moment ago, it's that vulnerability and authenticity that matter most, and building that trust in those relationships. We don't come into the classrooms as experts. We come in as your teammate. We come in as a teacher just like you. And so, it's our job to be vulnerable, to expose the things that we struggle with and the areas that we have to grow in, so that they see us as human beings, as real people that want to grow right alongside of them. So that's key in building that relationship. And that helps with some of that resistance too, is that they see us authentically as April, not as lead educator or coach. So, when we talk about goal setting, I think one of the things that's key is the choice, the element of choice. Without providing teachers some choice or some say in that, it loses that sense of autonomy, and teachers are less likely to partner with a coach, and it won't be a partnership. It'll still feel like a little bit more of that authoritative approach, more of that evaluative approach. When we allow teachers some say or some voice in setting those goals, it creates what we call like a responsible autonomy. Teachers then feel like they have ownership of the responsibility for the decisions they make in terms of the strategies that they want to learn and improve. They have a higher likelihood that they're going to dive in and dig in deep and do that hard work and really work through those challenges and problem solve what that's like to implement those strategies to be successful for their students, versus things that we name for them. The goals that they set need to be that personally meaningful and relevant. It has to connect with something that they know they want to work on, they're interested in, they know matters for their kids, and it's really going to, like Gene said, move the needle for their kids. So thinking about what makes the most difference, it's got to be a powerful goal for them. It's got to be bite-sized and manageable. we can't take on something the size of the world. And sometimes we feel like we have so many goals we set, we don't know where to start, or, which one to tackle first, and how to get to that big overarching end goal. So we want to make sure that it's manageable. Something we say, we kind of build off of that leverage leadership approach, is that bite-sized action step, something they can reasonably reach within a week. So we think of short-term, actionable, manageable, something that's emotionally compelling, that drives them toward the root of what's best for their kids, and that ultimately they know that gives them hope that they can reach it. They want to be able to achieve it. So they want to know, where am I going? How am I going to get there? And a belief in myself that I can actually do it.
But before Ashley goes, and Josh, I'm going to let you finish asking Ashley, something goes to my mind right away. Every district's different when they do their SMART goals and what that's all about. If I were to throw back at you right now, April, since you're the guru, according to Jean, with this, how do you lay this out in a succinct fashion that helps your teachers, not only teachers, I do this with students as well, short-term, long-term goals. What does it look like in your district that you can use this as a tool to measure and manage success?
Yeah. So like our coaching approach, like we said, is kind of a combination of a multitude of different models that we use. But most recently, we really focus in on that impact cycle to keep it very clean and very simple in terms of that process. And so, going in and doing those observations, one of the things we use most, and I'm going to volley it back to Jean because she's our tech guru when it comes to coaching, we use the swivel. So we do video coaching in our district. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the swivel, but it is a powerful tool when it comes to instructional coaching, and she can share more with you about that. I know she's shocked at some of the no's that are, heads that are shaking no, but you need to know about this because it's going to be a game changer in the life of your instructional coaching program in your districts, because it gives teachers the opportunity to see for themselves what they miss when they're in the moment of instruction in their classrooms. And so using that helps them really self-identify where they see those gaps and where they want to move next in terms of growth goals. Jean, I'm going to let you talk a little bit more about the swivel and tell them, of course, how we implement that in our district.
So the swivel is actually brought to us by another lead educator who had found it through her coaching and her own learning with coaching. Guys, if you don't have a district where you're able to put people in those spots for instructional coaching, swivel is it. So it is a device that, how if you've had kids in youth sports where you have the device that tracks the player, and the cameras track the player, right? And or tracks the ball even. So it's the same thing, but in a classroom. So the teacher wears a marker that records the audio, and the swivel is actually a device where you put the iPad in and it swivels to follow the marker of the teacher, and it has an audio tracker. And then you can also have the tracker on the desks of 2 or 3 students in group work time, and it captures that audio as well. Teachers can sign up for the swivel, video their lessons, review the lessons, and you can actually, through the Swivel Pro license, which is relatively affordable, you can timestamp the videos, and the one being coached can have a dialogue just through that platform. Been a game changer in schools where you have, in our larger schools. Teachers have really bought into it too, because like April said, the fish isn't aware of the water it's in. Teachers aren't aware of the things that happen always when their back is turned. It's been a real game changer in empowering teachers to identify and set their own goals, and then to reflect through that tool.
Wow. Years ago when I was a principal in another district, we had redesigned our educator evaluation system, and we created some tiers of experiences for teachers, and we acknowledged seniority or experience in those tiers. And one of the things that we provided opportunity for after their 8th year as an educator, they had the opportunity to do self-reflection and evaluation, and video recording of their lessons, doing an observation, and then providing corrective feedback from like a third-person lens for essentially a manual of good teaching practice was what we had focused on. I love the idea of, and I now know what we're talking about by swivel. I thought it was some type of new protocol, but it's actually a device. So just to get rid of the shake of my head, I love it. And I'm a big proponent of that, being brought into the classrooms.
Hey, Ashley, anything about personal goals there?
Yeah, and I'll jump off of that swivel too. We use swivels when I was in Rockwell ISD. I really liked it. If it's not budget friendly to have people in person on the ground floor, there are some platforms for virtual coaching. called Education 360 and Ed Connective, and they have staffed teachers and administrators that have left the classroom or gone or retired and are now doing virtual coaching. So that's a good, maybe budget-friendly option too. It is very different to coach virtually than it is in person, especially with that relationship building piece. I'll say when you're in person, you get to have those authentic conversations in the middle of the hallway. People can drop by your office when they need a moment's help, and all of those things fill their bucket when they have that opportunity with you. When you do it virtually, it's a little bit different, but I have found that there are ways to build relationships doing it virtually, just through the types of conversations you have, the way you start your meeting, the way you transition through your meeting, how you introduce yourself. One of the things I start off with my virtual coaching is just showing a little football clip of a coach, motivating a player, and just look at the things that they're doing. They're encouraging them. They're saying, you got it, keep on going, push through. I know you're tired, but you can do it. And so just kind of giving that idea that, I'm your cheerleader and I'm here to motivate you, but also help fine tune some things for you to make you better and stronger. So sorry, background noise. Trying to clarify that position and that role that you have. But I think when you talk about the goal setting, I think April hit it on the head with the finding the smallest moment that's going to be the biggest leverage to move them forward, so that they can see that the goals are attainable and that it is something that is not this massive thing that you have to do. And I think when you talk about those long-term goals, those SMART goals for the year, giving them that choice, like she said, and how are you going to attain that goal? I found that the biggest buy-in I got from teachers was giving them a choice on how are we going to do that? Is it going to be a book study, a research study? Is it going to be, we're going to go on some instructional rounds? Are we going to a conference together? Am I bringing people in? We're going to do one-on-one coaching? Like, what are all the tools that we're going to use? Because everybody learns in a very different way and things speak to them in very different ways. Some people love to read all the research and some want to see it in action. And so thinking about what are the learning tools that are going to help us attain that goal and how are we going to do that? So making that partnership and that plan together and showing them that, okay, yeah, this is going to be a process. This is our end of the year goal, but this is one of the things that we're going to do to get there. And it's going to be a fun time of learning together and growing.
It's funny that you said that. My mind quickly goes back from an educational leader standpoint. Every strategic plan that I've ever seen and every school improvement plan that I've ever seen has a plethora of goals. And I've always said to myself, why not just skin that back to 2 or 3 things and do them really well and have them attached right to your core values of what you believe teaching and learning should be like. Wait a second, what a concept that is. Okay. But that's just smart planning from a coaching standpoint. And I love the fact that you say you can inch towards those goals that are going to make you grow too, because that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Building capacity is one thing. Failure is part of growing and learning. We get that, but you've got to be able to attain those goals. And I'm glad you said that, Ashley. I'm glad you brought that out. Let me switch gears for a second. Let's talk about the difficulties from a coaching standpoint when you're dealing with teams versus individuals. Okay. Because that's a whole nother paradigm shift of what we're doing. In the middle school level, we have teams. And I think it's a great advantage for us because you have a group of talented educators together who come together and talk about student needs, best practices, how to attain all the things you need to do to be great as a team. So let me start with Ashley this time. Ashley, we made you go third last two times in a row here. That's tough to follow, both April and Jean.
That's all good. I think there's some benefits to both. I do feel like in some moments you get your biggest bang for your buck by coaching a team. If you really have a well-oiled machine, they know each other, like you teach them on those team roles, you coach them on, their personality traits. How are we going to work together? How are we going to make this, mesh well and move forward? You have a lot of impact there. When everybody's working together. But then, you have those people who are on those islands who don't have someone else who teaches biochemistry or whatever it is, especially in the middle school and high school realm. So I do think there's the benefit of the individual coaching. When you're coaching teams, you're really coaching into the kind of that planning. What does the planning look like? How do we plan together, make sure we're making effective lessons for kids in the classroom? You're building the knowledge base with a group all at one time instead of individually having to build that knowledge base on whatever that research practice is. And you're also clarifying and setting those expectations for your campus or your district. When you're working with the team, everybody's on the same page and they know what the end goal is and what we're working towards. When it's that individualized, you're working more, I feel like, on an implementation of what's actually happening in the classroom with the kids. How are they implementing the instruction? And what does their classroom environment look like? Because those two things can really hinder. They could have the best lesson plans and be working well as a team, but if they're not implementing the instruction well and they don't have a good classroom environment, then that's going to hinder the student learning. So I think you kind of have to look at what your focus or your purpose is to see which is best. But I do think that there is a lot of strength in coaching teams.
Love that. So one of the things I do with our evaluation tool, and again, I'm using the word, it's a tool. It's only a device. An evaluation piece is a device to help you get from here to there. What I like to make sure I do on every evaluation is do at least 2 to 3 things that I call accommodations in class, and then 2 or 3 things to make you stretch. I want you to ponder. I want you to dream about what this would look like. That leads to that deeper discussion later on, because that evaluation tool, in a lot of cases, that's the thing that scares people. Because the job with the evaluation tool is to help stretch somebody, not to say I gotcha. Okay, conversations are where you stretch the I gotchas, and that's where you try to help them become better. So let's kick it over to Jean.
I agree with Ashley. Clearly defining the goal of the coaching. Is it going to be better suited for a team where we all need to hear this, and this is something that we can all, learn at the same time, or am I going to need to invest in individuals and individual goals through, like you said, classroom environment or behavior or implementation strategies, engagement strategies. I think it really depends on the why of the coaching, more outside of a PLC, a learning group, but how can I coach a group? Am I just sharing information with my group? Am I truly providing a coaching cycle with that group? What your why is for that coaching or for those meetings. Ms. Lawson.
April?
Yeah, I think team coaching, I kind of echo the sentiments of both Ashley and Jean. The power behind team coaching is it maximizes the impact. We think about impacting 30 students versus 100 students. It's really about building that collective efficacy among a group of teachers through those shared experiences that they get with team coaching. The goals that you set are focused on the betterment of the whole and not the individual. But like Ashley said, there's that element of importance around that individual coaching. So identifying who are those teachers that need that individual coaching and who are the teams and for what purpose do they need that team coaching, and thinking about how they can, letting them see how they can achieve higher accomplishments together rather than apart or individually. Because we've all worked individually with those teachers and we're thinking, man, these students are really reaping the benefit of this one teacher, but what would the power look like across the whole team, the whole grade level? But what that requires to really have effective team coaching is this level of awareness of each of the members of the team, identifying how effective is our team. What does that look like? How do we operate together? I think Ashley said it well when she said, how do we mesh together? They have to mesh well. They have to understand how to operate as a team and what that requires, building that trust and transparency. So they have those critical, hard conversations that are necessary to have. We can't have this culture of nice happening all the time. We have to have some honesty going on. And that doesn't mean that has to come across rude or disrespectful, but we have to be able to approach the hard things so that we can grow together, and really defining what those specific practices are that are going to improve teaching and learning, and helping teams find that way to build that community of practices rather than just those individual practices. It's kind of like everybody moving together toward one goal. And so I think, like we've all said, there are benefits to both, but I think it's kind of what you're purposing and what you're hoping to accomplish with each of these approaches.
Hey, Dean, based on one of the comments made by Roz right now in the chat, that some administrators sit in our chairs want the coaches to fix a teacher. No, I apologize. If you sit in that chair, you got to be visible, just like Hannah said. It's not your instructional coach. That's from A to Z, everything starts and ends with that chair. So you need to be visible. If a elderly lady falls in the crack on the street, who has to deal with it? That chair. Instruction in the classroom, that chair. A to Z. So you cannot have our coaches try to fix, as Ross says, a team member that's not on board. That's your job. That's why they pay you those big bucks, as we always hear. They pay you the big bucks. You know what they do to make sure that they're all part of your way. And I always bring up at my former campus and this campus is I always bring up the Patriots. There is a way. There is a philosophy. There is a system. And I do believe, yes, sir, exactly. I always brought up Belichick and Brady. It doesn't matter who left. They put in a new person and they scored the Super Bowl. I don't care if we're in Texas or it's not about the football. It's about a coaching mentality. So it doesn't matter if it's individuals. It doesn't matter if it's a group. I think that it's crucial that someone that sits in our chair is visible and is working in conjunction with those coaches. If not, there will never be change.
Josh has got the big bucks. He's down there. That question that we just got from.
I was laughing at
Okay, I'm
it,
pointing
yeah.
down. That's Josh. Okay. For me, you know what? And I said this in the chat. It's about a cycle of continuous growth.
Yep.
Coaches lead. We need to make sure everybody who's in education, any business, there's a path of continuous growth. And if you don't look at it that way, you don't get to where you need to be. So.
Well, you know, as we sit down, we're talking about individual teachers. We're talking about teams of teachers helping to improve their practice. But what I really want to dive into right now as we transition in is talking about student engagement and student achievement, and how we afford teachers and teams the opportunity to understand how to really use the right metrics for how their instructional practices and assessment practices are really leveraging student achievement and engagement. Let's talk a little bit about that from that lens. Let's kick it off with April.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I think one of the things we have to make sure that we're doing, which Swivel definitely helps elevate that opportunity for us, is, you know, what kind of evidence are we gathering during our instruction that's helping us see what does student engagement actually look like, sound like? What are our students doing that tells us that they're engaged? And so having some sort of tool to represent that, and if you don't have Swivel, that's okay. There was a day we didn't have it either. And so it was kind of that when we do that goal setting, with teachers, we sit down and we talk about what types of ways are we going to gather some evidence during that lesson that tells us what our students are doing that are hooking them and keeping them engaged throughout the course of the lesson. And so making sure that we have that documentation to reflect on, you know, post that observation, post that lesson, to really start to see, okay, this is what we know this should be, and this is where we are, and what are the things that we need to do to sort of bridge that gap. And there's a multitude of engagement strategies, and sometimes, you know, it's kind of like, which one do we choose, and which going to be the highest lever that's really going to make the most impact for our students. And so knowing that you have a set of data to go to build that off of is really going to make that much more effective. Jean, did you have some things to add to that?
I think often we look we confuse compliant with engaged. And I think you can walk into a silent classroom and say, look how engaged they all were, when really they're just compliant. There's a big difference. And you see that in the end goal or their end scores, right? They were really compliant. They did everything I asked, but they weren't soaking any of it in or actively learning or active participants in any of it. And like April said, keeping those notes, keeping those anecdotal notes, keeping that running record of who, you know, the monitoring whatever on who's having success with whatever your lesson objective is, and who is not, and how will you coach around that? Just even that gathering of that information and then digesting it on the back end of, did that lesson go well? By what measure of your students? And were they fully engaged? Were they compliant? Were they quiet? Or were they, you know, those questions that you ask about what comes from a good lesson?
We could do a whole 60-minute show on compliance versus engagement. I'll be honest with you, because that is such a huge topic. Mm-hmm. Ashley.
Well, I think like April said, after you kind of gather all that data of what you're seeing in the classrooms, and you kind of have that baseline of reality of what's going on, and then you know what you want to be happening in classrooms, I think really defining that for your campus or your district. One of the things we've done in a previous district was create what we called look fors. And so we had like a little one pager of what we expected to see in classrooms when we came on data walks or instructional walks. And I think really kind of honing in on what are we as a campus and what are we looking for, and then continuing that monitoring and that data collection and that conversation over and over, and then comparing that to the actual data that you are gathering in anecdotal notes, observations in the classroom, state assessments, campus assessments, district assessments, and comparing all of that to see what's truly going on. I think Josh hits it a lot when he talks about, I don't want to be a bored as an adult, so engage me in PD. So I think also modeling what engagement looks like when we are training teachers or leading a staff meeting or having a PLC, what are we doing to also engage them, and modeling what engagement looks like so that they're therefore going and doing that in the classrooms as well.
And, you know, I'm glad you said that, Ashley, because at this school and the last school, I believe in role modeling the PD. I need to be showing it. Not only that, but I need to empower our team members to also be the leaders of the PD. That will allow for a better conversation between them when they go into their classrooms to observe instruction. That breaks down a lot of those silo mentalities. Because if they see that the main chair is presenting and not boring them, that's the most important part. Don't bore me, please. Kids don't like to be bored. We don't like to go to central office and be bored by you. Not at all. You can't tell us engage the kids in a boring way when you're telling us to do that. It all rolls downhill. And so it's again, the Patriot way. It's a philosophy that all of us that sit within our chairs working in conjunction with you all. So now let's get a little bit dirty and tell us from your experiences, because right now you might have an assistant principal. This is their first year in the middle of Corona. You know what? You have a first year principal that doesn't know about this. Their great thing was textbooks and buses, but now they're instructional leaders. With your experience, now that you see different campuses, different group team members out there, let us know about the differentiation that you have with coaching. How do you approach this? Because that new AP, is going to have to talk to that veteran teacher that teaches Algebra 1, and then that rookie we just hired from graduating right now in December. Hey, we're all going through that, all right? Raise your hand if we're not all going through that. So when you guys have done this, how do you approach this? What playbook do you use as you're going down the imaginary 100 hallway and you have the math hallway and you approach this? How do you coach them? Talk to us, April.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just important to remember that coaching is not a one-size-fits-all approach. You have a myriad of different teachers with different skill sets, experiences, backgrounds, knowledge bases. And so you've got to go in and figure out who they are, just like you do as a teacher in the classroom with your students. I've got to get to know you. And I have to know what's important to you, what you value, what you know, what you want to know and understand. So I think that's where that begins, is knowing that it has to be differentiated and kind of standing on that ground. Also, it's going to be based on a multiple set of data sources. You know, you're looking at not only what the teacher's growth plan is or for themselves, but also what school improvement goals and leader feedback to really know how to shape that coaching conversation with those teachers, so that you're going in with the right approach, listening to, you know, all the different things that you need to be considering when coaching that teacher. And then thinking about what is the coaching stance that I'm going to take. I think coaching works on a continuum. We kind of set that stage where we say we can be consultant, collaborator, or coach or guide. And so I think it's a number of ways that you work based on what you've identified as the need and who that teacher is and what they need most, which really going to make the most impact for them in their practice. And thinking about that consultation, you know, if I'm just sharing information, helping you acquire new knowledge versus are we collaborating and determining a focus area together, or I'm just really going to ask you some facilitative questions and let you do some deep self-reflection to arrive at your own goals and solve your own problems. So I think we have to know, you know, multiple ways of approaching that and where that teacher falls on that continuum. It's not only about your level of awareness of the teacher, it's also about their teacher's self-awareness and where they feel like they need to grow and can have the biggest impact in their growth. And I would just close that with thinking about the different kinds of coaching approaches. When you go into that coaching conversation, it's going to sound different with every teacher too. So as you've identified those things about those individual teachers, it's how are we going to actually facilitate this conversation? You know, we follow that Jim Knight model of facilitative, dialogical, or directive. We started out in our district a lot more directive, a lot more, we're just going to point it out and we're going to tell you what to, you know, improve. But then there's a lot of resistance and it was an ineffective model. And so we had to really sort of evolve and think about, okay, this is not going to fit everyone, depending on whether they're veteran, new, what they know, what they don't. And so there's a lot to really take into consideration. And it's not as simple as it might seem on the outset of how you approach that with different teachers in your building.
Awesome. Hey, April, can you do me a favor? When I'm on listening to podcasts and I do these Facebook Lives, some presenters say something and I want to learn from it. Can you put it in our chat and I'll put it on our Facebook? That model that you use, again, this might be a first year assistant principal that one might want to research this later on a YouTube or something. So put it in our chat and I'll put it on our Facebook Live, and then Dean, just kick it out so everyone can see it. That's how we learn. Yep. We build capacity from each other, because I've never heard of that, April. So you just educated me. So thank you for that model. Put it there and we'll share it out. Ashley?
Well, speaking specifically to the scenario that you're giving us with the AP, I think one thing to remember is that hopefully at some point in time they were a teacher in a classroom with kids. and they know how to build relationship with kids. They know what instruction looks like, whether it was math instruction or science instruction, whatever it was. Good instruction is good instruction. It doesn't matter what the content is. It matters how you're implementing it. And so just remembering back to that and thinking about, okay, now I'm going to coach teachers. How am I going to translate that I did with students at one time into building relationships with teachers and engaging teachers and learning and growing for themselves to coach them? I think one of the things that I've seen from anybody who's come new into a role of a principal or AP and had instructional coaches is that they really lean on them and have a partnership with them to learn and grow from each other and work together. And then that willingness to put themselves in the classroom. We've talked a lot about being seen. The more that they're in classrooms and seeing the amazing teachers on their campus and the things they're doing, they see the things they want to transform or transfer from one classroom to another classroom. So then how do I take this awesomeness over here and transfer it into this awesomeness over here? And so I think being in the classrooms, being seen, being to learn and grow yourself, leaning on your instructional coaches if you have them, but also remembering what it was like to be a teacher and then using that to go to coach teachers. Jean?
Yes, so I'll take it. I 100% agree with both of you, but to take it back a level further and looking at it from a teacher's lens, as an assistant principal who's new to the school, who's walking down the math hallway to coach an Algebra 1 teacher for the very first time, are your expectations clear about what good teaching looks like? Good teaching is good teaching is good teaching, but what do you expect? What do you expect in this building? What's your vision in this building? What do you expect in this building? Because in every building, although they may be in the same district, is a little different. And if you were anything like our district, you have teachers coming from Southern Indiana, South Florida, North Georgia, and straight out of University of Knoxville. And they all bring a different lens and they all bring a different level of expertise. And what does it look like? What do I expect as an AP in my building for good teaching? Research-based strategies that are effective, that translate from Algebra 1 to 7th grade science to 4th grade reading. Good teaching is good teaching. Have you clearly set those expectations around what you expect as a leader before you start coaching? Do you have a direction for your coaching that aligns with the vision and mission of your school? Because it's easy to shoot in a ton of different directions. Everyone's on different pages, but we're all working for that same goal. We all have different starting points, but are we working towards the same goal? And I think that's something that we often miss, that we don't have a clear vision for our coaching or even for our instruction and what we expect in setting those baselines.
Thank you all for sharing your ideas.
I was just watching to see if you could read my lips. I said, I love what Dr. Houston had put out there because expectations are all that you need. Just like in the classroom, you want the kids to know what the expectations are. Teachers are just an older, bigger, taller version of kids. Okay, we get that. And we want to make sure that we give them the tools to be successful. Listen, before Chris closes out, just very quickly, sum this up in like 40 seconds each. Jean, April, and Ashley. Okay, here from your perspective. Your passion and your energy shows through with everything that you're talking about here. What do you love most about your job? Jean, you go first.
My answer to that forever and always will be kids. I got into this position and it's in this career for kids, and it sounds cliche, but every day my cup is filled by some little person, right? And seeing how my impact and how I can help adults love their job and impact kids, it's forever my why. I will always have one foot in the classroom.
I would just add to what Jean. Yes, I would just add to what Jean's saying. It's that same feeling of seeing that excitement and that joy for learning. Not only that happens with our students, but that happens with our teachers and our leaders. Just the smiles on the faces as you walk down the hallway, the laughter, the excitement that kids have when they want to show you something great that they've done or tell you something that they've learned. That is absolutely what fuels my fire every single day.
Ashley.
Yes, amen to all that. And the change in the growth that I see on the campus, or even with a one-on-one individual remotely from the beginning to the end. Like I almost get teary-eyed at the end of every coaching cycle because I'm just like, look at what we've done. Like it's just amazing to see the change in the growth in them as a person, but also their classroom and those students. So that's really what I thrive on. It's just how far we can go. I love it.
I got an idea. Let's get rid of the term teachers. Let's call everybody coaches. Top to bottom, we're all coaches. Think about it for a second. That's a great way to connect with people. Coaches lead, they facilitate. All right, Chris.
Hey, Gene, April, Ashley, Josh, Dean, thanks so much for this evening. One of the most important pieces of what we do is we're in the human business, right? And we talk about taking people to the next level and not just going through the motions and doing things for the paycheck. We're doing things for the greater good. As we sit down and we think about instructional coaching, one of the first things that comes into my mind is we have to honor who is in front of us, what they believe in, and what their definition of excellence and success is. And honoring those pieces, we're able to really come together and move things forward at an individual and a collective team level, and ultimately school district, and ultimately greater good, for our society. But it's absolutely essential for our district offices, our state level leaders, our national leaders to really understand the importance of having a clear, articulated vision about what the purpose and intent for betterment is. It's not necessarily about those assessment scores. It's about all the methodologies that go into improving those assessment scores. And instructional coaching, instructional leadership, teaching in general is all about knowing your audience and knowing what it is that makes them tick and how they can be better each and every day. We got some great insights out of this evening's episode with April Lawson, Gene Hessen, Ashley Hubner, Josh Tovar, Dean Packard, and of course, myself, Chris Starcheski. Hey, we had a great time tonight. We're coming at you at the end of this week with some great information. Always stay tuned, be in touch, be well, work hard, and as always, just keep on chugging, everybody. Be well. Enjoy your Sunday evening.
Everybody stay on.